they were already shouting when she opened the door. No hello. No pause. Just voices stacked on top of each other, sharp and afraid and certain they were right. The deputy stood closest, hand near his belt, boots planted like he owned the ground. Her sister hovered behind him, wringing her hands, eyes fixed on the man slumped against the post. Blood ran down his temple and dried at his jaw. He didn't look up. You don't bring him inside, the deputy said. Not him. He needs a doctor, the sister said. Or at least a bed. He needs a cell, the deputy said. Or the ground. The widow stayed in the doorway. One hand on the frame. 1 foot inside her house. She didn't look at the deputy. She looked at her sister. You shouldn't be here, the widow said. I came because I love you, the sister said. And because this is wrong. What's wrong is you standing there telling me what to do, the widow said. The deputy cleared his throat. Ma'am, he's not right. The widow finally looked at him. Neither am I. He kills things, the deputy said. So did my husband, she said. Her sister flinched. That ain't fair. It's accurate, the widow said. The man against the post shifted. His hand slid down the wood, leaving a smear. He still didn't speak. His eyes stayed on the dirt like it was safer there. The deputy took a step forward. You don't know what he is. I know what you are, the widow said. The deputy smiled thin. Watch your mouth. This is my house, she said. My mouth works fine. Her sister moved closer, lowering her voice. Please. People are watching. They're scared. They're always scared, the widow said. Didn't stop them before. The deputy leaned in. You open that door, you're choosing sides. I chose a long time ago, she said. Against the law, he asked. Against men who hide behind it, she said. The man coughed. It sounded wet. The sister turned toward him, tears breaking loose. He's bleeding. He'll bleed more somewhere else, the deputy said. The widow felt the weight of the house behind her. The quiet. The smell that never left. She thought of the floor inside. The mark she scrubbed and never erased. She thought of how loud it had been that day. How fast everything ended. Step back, she told the deputy. He laughed once. You're making a mistake. I'm used to those, she said. Her sister reached out and grabbed her arm. Don't do this. He's trouble. He brings it with him. So did grief, the widow said. And I survived that. The deputy's voice hardened. You shelter him, you answer for him. The widow nodded. I answer for myself. The man finally lifted his head. His eyes were pale and flat, like they'd burned everything out. He looked at the widow, not the deputy, not the sister. His voice was low and steady when it came, like it had been waiting. I won't stay long. The yard went quiet. Even the sister stopped breathing for a moment. The deputy stared at him. You don't get to decide. The widow did. She turned back into the house. Her hand closed around the latch. She felt the old wood under her palm, the place worn smooth by years of coming and going. She paused just long enough for everyone to think she might stop. Then she pulled the door wider. Step inside, she said. Don't touch nothing. The door shut behind them with a sound that felt final, like something being sealed. The widow didn't turn right away. She stood there with her hands still on the latch, breathing slow, listening to the quiet settle back into the house. The man stayed where he was, just inside the doorway, blood dark against his skin, eyes moving now, taking in the walls, the ceiling, the corners. You stay by the wall, she said. Walls fall, he said. Not mine, she said. She moved past him, keeping distance, lighting the lamp without asking if he could see. The light filled the room unevenly, catching on the table, the stove, the floor. He shifted his weight, careful, like he was reading something she couldn't see. "You can sit," she said. "Chair by the door." "I'll stand," he said. "Suit yourself." She grabbed a rag from the sink and held it out. He looked at it like it might bite. "For your head," she said. "I'll manage." That wasn't a question. He took it. Their fingers didn't touch. He pressed the cloth to his temple, eyes still moving, stopping and starting like he was tracking sound instead of sight. "You live alone," he said. "Yes." "No kids?" "No." "No dogs?" "No." He nodded once, like he was checking boxes. His boots stayed close to the wall. Too close. She noticed then how he angled his steps, how he avoided the middle of the room. How he stepped over nothing at all. "You can take your coat off," she said. He shook his head. "I'll keep it." "You're dripping on my floor." "I'll clean it." "Later." He shifted again, foot sliding, then stopping hard. She followed his eyes. They were fixed on the dark patch near the stove. The place where the boards never quite matched the rest. Where the color sank deeper no matter how much she scrubbed. "Don't stare," she said. He looked away fast. "Wasn't." "You were." "Habit." "From what?" "From knowing where not to step." Her jaw tightened. She moved closer to the stove, blocking the stain with her body without meaning to. "You hungry?" she asked. "No." "You sure?" "Yes." She poured water anyway, set the cup on the table. "It's there." He didn't move. "You think I poisoned it," she said. "No." "Then drink." He crossed the room slowly, eyes down, counting boards. He stopped short, boot hovering. The room felt smaller. The air felt tight. "You can step," she said. He looked up at her. That's where it happened. Her throat closed. "You don't know that." He lowered his foot but didn't put weight on it. "Houses talk." "This one doesn't," she said. "It does if you listen." She turned away, busying her hands, wiping a counter already clean. "You ain't welcome to its stories." He finally stepped around the stain instead of on it, took the cup, drank without spilling. He die loud. The words landed heavy, simple, wrong. She froze. Her hand gripped the edge of the counter until her knuckles burned. "Don't ask me that," she said. He watched her back. "You don't have to answer." "I said don't." Silence filled the space. The lamp hissed. The wind pressed against the walls. He set the cup down. "I'll take the floor by the door." "No," she said. "Chair's fine." "I don't sleep easy." "Neither do I." Their eyes met. Something passed between them. Not trust. Not fear. Recognition maybe. He nodded once. She moved aside. He walked straight then, no counting, no care. His boot came down hard, right on the dark place by the stove. The floor didn't break. The house didn't scream. She did not breathe. The knock cut through the room while her breath was still held, sharp and loud, close enough to feel in her chest. The man didn't move off the stain. He didn't look at the door. The widow turned slowly, every muscle tight. "That ain't an invite," she said. The second knock came harder. Wood shook in its frame. "Open up," a voice called. "I know you're in there." She stepped toward the door. The man finally shifted, just enough to give her space. "You stay back," she said. "I am back," he said. She pulled the door open halfway. The sheriff filled the gap like he belonged there. Hat low. Smile thin. Cold eyes that took the whole room in one sweep. "Evening," he said. "Heard you had company." "You heard wrong," she said. His eyes slid past her, found the man. They stayed there. He can't stay. He already is, she said. The sheriff stepped closer. This don't concern you. This is my house, she said. Everything in it concerns me. You think you own this land, he said. I buried someone in it, she said. That count? The sheriff's jaw worked. He glanced at the man again. You know who he is. I know who you are, she said. That's so, the sheriff said. Then you know I'm trying to help. No, she said. You're trying to clean. The man stayed quiet. Still. His silence pulled the room tight around him. The sheriff tipped his head. You hurt, son. The man didn't answer. I said you hurt, the sheriff said. You come into town bleeding, folks get ideas. The widow cut in. You didn't not to talk. I knock out of courtesy, the sheriff said. I enter when I have to. Try it, she said. Her sister's words echoed in her head. People are watching. She held her ground anyway. The sheriff sighed like she tired him. He's dangerous. So was Winter, she said. He's killed before. So have you, she said. The sheriff's smile vanished. Careful. You don't scare me, she said. I should, he said. Ask your husband. The words hit low. The man's head lifted a fraction. You leave him out of this, she said. He ain't ever out of it, the sheriff said. He was there. The man spoke then, voice flat. So were you. The sheriff turned fully toward him. You got nerve. I got memory, the man said. The room felt smaller. The sheriff's hand drifted near his belt. You come with me, the sheriff said. Now. The man didn't move. No. The widow stepped between them. He's not going anywhere. You hiding him, the sheriff said. I'm sheltering, she said. Same thing, he said. It's not, she said. One's human. The sheriff laughed once, sharp. You always were soft. I'm tired, she said. There's a difference. He leaned closer, voice low. You keep him, you answer for what comes next. What comes next comes anyway, she said. The sheriff straightened. Winter don't forgive mistakes. She met his eyes. Neither do I. He looked at the man one last time. You should have stayed gone. The man said nothing. His eyes didn't blink. The sheriff stepped back. This ain't over. It never is, she said. He turned and left, boots heavy on the porch. The door stayed open until his steps faded. The cold crept in. The widow closed it slow. Her hand shook. The man moved before she could speak. He reached out and slid the lock into place. He didn't ask. The knock hit while the room was still holding its breath, sharp enough to make the lamp jump. The man stayed planted where he was, boot on the dark mark, shoulders loose like nothing surprised him anymore. The widow turned toward the door slow, every step measured, like speed might give something away. That ain't an invite, she said. Another knock came, harder, closer, like the wood owed someone an answer. A voice pushed through it, calm and practiced. Open up. She didn't look back at the man. Don't move. He didn't answer. She opened the door just enough. The sheriff filled the space with his shadow first, then his smile. Hat low. Coat clean. Eyes already inside her house. Evening, he said. Smells warm. What do you want, she said. I hear you got a problem, he said. I don't, she said. His eyes slid past her, landed on the man. They stayed there. He can't stay. He already is, she said. The sheriff stepped closer, hand brushing the doorframe like it belonged to him. This is bigger than you. This is my house, she said. Nothing's bigger than that. You think you own this land, he said. I buried someone in it, she said. That enough for you? His jaw tightened. He looked back at the man. You're hurt. The man didn't answer. You hear me, the sheriff said. He hears, the widow said. He just don't care. The sheriff smiled thin. That's so. That's so, she said. You know who he is, the sheriff said. I know what you call him, she said. I'm trying to keep folks safe, he said. You're trying to keep folks quiet, she said. The room felt smaller. The sheriff stepped inside without asking. The widow didn't move out of his way. You gonna stop me? He asked. I already am, she said. He laughed once. You always had a mouth. And you always had a badge, she said. Funny how those work. The sheriff turned to the man. You bring trouble everywhere you go. Trouble follows power, the man said. The sheriff's smile dropped. You don't get to speak. I just did, the man said. The sheriff's hand hovered near his belt. You killed before. So have you, the widow said. He snapped his eyes back to her. Careful. You ain't ever been careful, she said. Just lucky. The sheriff leaned in close. Your husband knew better. The words hit low. The widow stiffened. The man's head lifted a fraction. Leave him out of it, she said. He was part of it, the sheriff said. So were you, the man said. The sheriff stared at him. You accusing me? I'm remembering, the man said. Silence pressed in. The lamp hissed. The sheriff straightened, smoothing his coat. You come with me now, he said. No, the man said. The widow stepped between them. He stays. You shelter him, the sheriff said. I choose him, she said. That's a mistake, he said. So was trusting you, she said. The sheriff took a step back. Winter don't forgive mistakes. She met his eyes. Neither do graves. He looked at the man one last time. You should have stayed gone. The man didn't blink. The sheriff turned and left, boots heavy on the porch. Cold rushed in. The widow closed the door slow. Her hand shook. Before she could speak, the man reached out and slid the lock home. He didn't ask. The widow didn't move from the table for a long minute after the sheriff left. The wind rattled the windows, cold sliding in under the edges. The man leaned against the wall, silent, his eyes scanning the room like he was mapping it for danger. She pushed back her chair and crossed the floor slowly, careful not to step on the dark boards, though he didn't seem to care. You killed him, she asked finally, her voice low. They were already dead, he said. That ain't an answer, she said. It's the only one, he said. She stopped. He didn't look at her when he said it. The words hung in the room heavy, like smoke that wouldn't clear. Fire, he said after a pause, almost to himself. Shouting. Badge in dirt. Heard it crack underfoot. What badge? She asked. Town's law, he said. Dropped where it didn't belong. You mean the one they said you stole? I took nothing, he said. Only remembered. She felt a tight ache in her chest, a pull she hadn't felt since she buried her husband. The sheriff's voice, the gossip, the lies, they all clicked into a new shape. They lied about you, she said. They always lie, he said. Her hands gripped the table. Then they're scared of you, she said. They should be, he said. Silence fell between them. The wind outside rattled the shutters, a cold percussion keeping time. She moved to the stove, letting the warmth brush her face, but she could feel his eyes on her. Not hungry, not curious. Just watching. They call me a monster, he said quietly. Not because of what I did. Because I exist. She turned toward him, eyes hard. And you are? Alive, he said. Her sister's warning echoed in her head, but it was quiet now, a distant echo against the weight of the truth in the room. She wanted to ask more, but she knew the questions would come later. He was not a man to explain in whole. "I'm not afraid of monsters," she said. "Most are," he said. "Most are wrong," she said. He stepped toward the wall, boots careful around the dark boards. The house groaned under him, old wood remembering everything. She noticed it now, the way he moved, like he could read history from the floorboards. "Why are you here?" she asked. "Because it's winter," he said. "And some places are colder than the wind." She swallowed, the taste of something bitter filling her mouth. "And you think my house is one of those places?" "I think it's yours," he said. She wanted to argue, wanted to push him out, wanted to run back into the world outside that had rules and lies. But the house was heavy, and the dark stain stayed under his boots like it belonged to him too. "You could leave," she said. "I don't leave easy," he said. "I don't want easy," she said. The wind shook the window panes again. She leaned against the wall near the stove, letting the warmth brush her hands. He moved again, finally, stepping across the room, careful, precise, boot falling on the board she never cleaned right. "You see it?" she asked. "See what?" he said. "The mark. The floor remembers." He nodded once, quiet. "Floors tell the truth. People forget." She swallowed, jaw tight. "I'm not ready to forget." "Then don't," he said. "Just don't let it break you." Her lips pressed together. The silence grew, but it didn't hurt anymore. She could feel the room shift, edges of it bending around the two of them. The house that had been empty now felt occupied, not by ghosts she couldn't name, but by a weight she could measure, step by step, board by board. He finally moved across the room, stepping directly onto the dark stain. She caught her breath, but he didn't flinch. Didn't shift. Just stood there, letting the house remember, letting her remember. And in that stillness, she realized something: the house had survived worse than her. So had he. And maybe, for the first time since the winter came, she could too. The wind rattled the windows like it wanted inside, cold pressing its way through every crack. The widow tightened the shawl around her shoulders and moved toward the stove, poking at the fire that refused to stay alive. Sparks caught for a second, then died. The man stood by the wall, hands tucked in his coat pockets, watching her with pale, flat eyes. "You eat first," she said, setting a bowl on the table. "I don't eat charity," he said. "Then starve polite," she said. He shrugged, and she knew he meant it. She carried her own bowl to the table, sitting opposite him without waiting for an invitation. Silence hovered over them, thick and uneasy, broken only by the hiss of the dying fire. She looked at his hands, steady now, resting on his knees, fingers long and calloused. "You fix things?" she asked. "I do," he said. Her eyes flicked to the broken latch on the cupboard. A week ago, her husband would have promised to get it fixed, then forgotten. The man moved without hesitation, hands skilled and quiet. The latch clicked back into place, clean. "You do a lot of things right," she said, surprise edging her tone. "I learn fast," he said. The wind rattled the windows again. She glanced outside at the trees bending in the cold. "Winter comes hard," she said. "It finds cracks," he said. She realized he wasn't just speaking about the weather. She stirred her food without looking at him. The air felt tighter now, the fire flickering between them, threatening to die again. "You keep it going," she said, nodding toward the stove. He leaned forward, showing her the technique. "Fuel low. Blow gently. Don't smother it." She watched, copying his movements, hesitant. Sparks caught this time, then held. Heat pressed against her palms, filling the room with the smell of burning wood. "You've got to pay attention," he said. "I am," she said. "Half-hearted, maybe," he said. "I don't need lessons," she said. "Lesson isn't the word," he said. "Practice." She looked at him, the way his boots stayed clear of the old stain, how his hands moved sure, precise. She realized he was teaching more than fire. He was teaching patience, control, survival, the things her husband never had, the things she never thought she needed. "You're not like anyone here," she said. No, he said. Not bad either, she said. No, he said. Just alive. The wind picked up, rattling the windows harder, shaking the thin glass. The fire wavered, but he blew gently, coaxing it back to life. She followed, mimicking his motion, and heat spread through the room in a slow pulse, chasing the cold. You keep it burning, she said. That's the point, he said. She nodded, feeling a strange calm in her chest. The storm outside could rage all it wanted. They had fire now. They had the room, the walls, the floor. It was enough to keep them alive tonight. You staying? She asked. I stay where it's warm, he said. She laughed, low and bitter. Warm isn't forever. Neither is cold, he said. She stared at him, trying to weigh the truth in his words. He wasn't here for her, not exactly. He wasn't here for the house. He was here because survival had no rules, because the wind found cracks in everyone's armor, because winter demanded proof you were alive. She moved to the cupboard, fetching a bundle of wood. He followed, hands brushing hers as he took it. Don't touch nothing, she said softly, the words carrying differently now. Not a command. A warning. He nodded, stacking the wood by the stove. The room smelled of dry pine and dust and something older, something that had been waiting. She thought about the stain on the floor, the one he avoided but didn't fear. She thought about the sheriff, about the town, about the years she had spent surviving alone. You fix more than wood, she said. I fix what I can, he said. She realized he might be right. Maybe fixing what she could, keeping the fire alive, holding the room steady, that was enough. Maybe that was all anyone could ask. The fire caught fully this time, roaring gently in the old stove. Heat filled the corners. The man stepped back, hands on his hips, eyes on the flames. She mirrored him, letting warmth seep into her bones, letting the noise of the storm fade into the background. See, he said. I see, she said. Good, he said. And for the first time since the cold pressed in, since the house had felt like a cage, she believed they could survive the night. Not just the night, the winter. The fire flickered, shadows stretching along the walls, marking them both, the stain on the floor, the distance between past and present. She moved closer, more confident now, lifting her own hands to tend the blaze with him. Together, steady, careful, they coaxed warmth from stubborn wood, coaxed life into the room, coaxed hope from cold and fear. Outside, the wind screamed. Inside, the fire held. And for a moment, nothing else mattered. They walked past the grave without speaking. Snow had begun to fall, thin and relentless, covering the dirt and the stones in a quiet insistence. The widow's step slowed as she neared the marker, and the man stopped beside her, boots crunching in the light layer of frost. Don't look at it, she said, voice sharp, brittle. He's still talking, he said. Her fingers gripped the edge of her coat. She glanced at him, jaw tight. Talking to who? To you, he said. To the people who listen. She shook her head. He worked with them. With the sheriff. With everyone who mattered. And, he asked. And it ended like this, she said, gesturing to the ground, to the white dust of snow hiding the black soil beneath. Her throat tightened. Anger, raw and hot, replaced the sorrow she had carried all these years. And you weren't here. You weren't there to stop it. I wasn't, he said. But you lived. You survived. Survived, she asked. Her voice trembled. He's gone, and everything he built is gone too. You call that surviving? You didn't kill him, he said. You just lived after. She wanted to shout, to punch, to break the stillness around them. Her hands curled into fists at her sides, snow melting against her palms. Living doesn't make it right, she said. It makes it possible, he said. The snow fell faster, dusting their shoulders, clinging to the folds of her coat. The wind was sharper here, whispering through the trees, carrying the scent of frost and earth. She crouched near the grave, fingertips brushing the frozen ground. The mark of grief was still there, pressed into her memory, raw and persistent. You think I can forgive? She asked. I don't know, he said. I know you can stand. Her head dropped, letting the cold sting her cheeks. I stand, but it doesn't make it easier. You do what you must, he said. And the rest comes later. She pressed her palms to the earth, feeling the cold seep into her bones, feeling the weight of loss and silence pressing down. Snowflakes melted on her skin, each one a reminder of time passing, of seasons changing, of the world moving whether she wanted it to or not. You survived alone, he said. So you know what that means. I know what it means to be angry, she said. To be afraid. To be betrayed. To carry the sound of someone else's death inside me every day. And yet here you are, he said. Standing. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the wind whip around her. When she opened them, she saw him watching her with an intensity she hadn't expected. He wasn't cold, exactly, just steady, untouchable in his stillness. She could feel the pressure of his gaze, the quiet insistence that she acknowledge her own strength. I don't know if I can do it, she said. You already are, he said. She sank to the ground, knees pressed into the frost, hands clutching at the snow and dirt alike. The storm whispered around them, filling the space between her and the grave with a raw, biting clarity. The man stepped closer but didn't crouch. He stood with his boots pressed against the frost, silent, a solid presence in the cold. I thought surviving meant moving on, she said. I thought it meant forgetting. It doesn't, he said. Not everything. You remember to survive, and you survive to remember. She let her head fall back, eyes tracking the gray sky. Snowflakes caught in her lashes. The wind carried a faint howl, a warning, a promise, a reminder of the winter yet to come. She felt the pull of grief, the weight of years, the emptiness of the house and town, and she let it sit with her, unshaken. You did what you had to do, he said softly. You kept breathing. That's enough for now. She didn't answer. Her fingers traced the frozen edges of the grave, feeling the lines of stone against the earth, against memory. The snow fell heavier, covering the ground in white, erasing what was visible, leaving only what remained in her heart. The man didn't move. He waited. The quiet stretched around them, a boundary, a shield, a reckoning. I hate it, she said finally, voice low. I hate the sound of it all. You hate the truth, he said. No, she said. I hate that it didn't stop when it should have. That it never stopped. He nodded once. You survived it anyway. The snow pressed closer, covering the stones, covering the frost-dusted earth. She sank lower, letting it coat her shoulders, letting the cold reach her bones, letting the grief fill the space between her and the world. The man stood beside her, solid and unmoving. The wind carried a low moan through the trees, a sound that felt like voices of the past reaching forward. You're still alive, he said. That's enough for now. She didn't speak. She let the snow fall, let the cold seep, let the memory settle around her like a heavy cloak. Her hands rested on the frozen ground, fingers brushing the rough edges of the earth she could never unsee. The wind swirled, the snow thickened, and she stayed there, silent, letting the world continue without her permission. The widow pushed herself up from the frost-coated ground, snow clinging to her coat, hands stiff from cold. She brushed her hair back, fingers shaking, and looked toward the well at the edge of the graveyard. Something had caught her eye, a glint, small and metallic, tucked in the bucket that hung from the rope. She stepped closer, careful, boots crunching in the snow, and lifted it. It was a badge, dulled and scratched, its edge worn by years in dirt. Her fingers closed around it like she was gripping the weight of something forbidden. She turned slowly, eyes meeting his. You kept this? She asked, voice low but hard. Didn't want it floating back, he said. His eyes were steady, almost unreadable. Her jaw tightened. This belonged to them. They weren't deserving, he said. Lot isn't what you think it is. Not here. Not ever. She held it closer, noticing the scratches, the dents, the places the metal had bent under force. The sheriff's face flickered in her memory, smile thin, eyes cold, boots planted like he owned everything. And the things they had buried. The bodies, the names, the quiet disappearances no one asked about. They've been hurting people, she said. Hiding what they did. He nodded slowly. Hiding, lying, taking. That's the way they've always done it. I just survived it. Survived it, she asked, the words bitter. By leaving them alive? By keeping memory sharp, he said. By watching the cracks. Her fingers curled tighter around the badge. They think they can come back and erase it. They can't, he said. You need to leave, she said. It's dangerous here. No, he said. Danger is everywhere. I just make it slower. The snow swirled heavier around them. She glanced at the graveyard, at the frozen earth, at the weight of silence pressing from every side. There were stories here, names whispered in wind, secrets buried too deep. And now, in her hand, the badge was proof that someone had tried to wield power and failed. They're coming back, she said finally, voice hard. He nodded. Good. The wind whipped past, cold and relentless. She glanced at him, measuring him again, counting the years behind those pale eyes, the quiet understanding that only someone who had survived worse could hold. You know what they are, she said. Law dressed in lies, he said. And you, she asked. Just alive, he said. Her hand shook slightly as she slid the badge back into her coat pocket. Then we'll be ready, she said. He didn't smile. He didn't move. He only nodded, letting the snow fall around them, letting the cold press close without fear. In that silence, the shift was clear. Power was no longer theirs to hold, but theirs to meet on their terms. The trees swayed, branches scraping against each other like whispered warnings. The wind carried the faint smell of smoke, distant and metallic, and she realized it was the scent of change. The house, the town, the sheriff, they were all part of a story that had begun long before them. And now, finally, the story was turning. Her fingers brushed the badge again under her coat, feeling the weight of truth, of justice not yet served but inevitable. The man's boots pressed into the snow beside hers, steady, unwavering. She straightened, eyes forward, spine stiff. They're coming back, she said again. He nodded once, slow. Good. The sound of distant wind was the only answer. They turned together toward the house, toward warmth, toward the fire that needed tending. The snow covered their tracks, but not the choices they had made, not the stand they had taken. Inside, the room waited, empty but ready. Outside, the world pressed in, cold and insistent. Between the two of them, silence stretched, but it was no longer fearful. It was deliberate, full of purpose. The house had survived, they had survived, and soon, those who thought they held power would find themselves measured against something stronger. The widow struck the match and lit the lantern, the flame flickering against the walls and throwing long shadows across the floor. The room felt alive, warmer, but the snowstorm outside pressed against the windows like it wanted inside. She set the lantern on the table and moved toward the cupboard, pulling out papers, letters, small envelopes tied with string. Her hands worked fast, deliberate. She stacked them, checked them, prepared them. Evidence, stories, proof of wrongs no one in town would ever admit. You sure? The man asked, watching her from across the room. His voice was low, cautious, not mocking. I've been sure for years, she said, without looking at him. Her hands didn't stop. You know what comes with this, he said. Everything, she said. He shifted closer to the stove, boots near the old dark stain on the floor. You ready for them? I've been ready, she said. They'll see who they've been underestimating. He nodded. Good. They moved together around the room. She laid the letters on the table, some open, some sealed, all of them telling the same story. Widows, orphans, men gone missing, threats whispered and ignored. The weight of it pressed into the walls, heavy, undeniable. You ready for the sheriff? She asked. He tilted his head. They never come alone. She picked up a small box of tools and set it beside her. Not guns, not knives. Tools to prove truth. To expose lies. She ran her fingers over the wood, over the metal, over the cold weight of action in her hands. You want me to leave? He asked. No, she said. Stay. Help if you can. I can, he said. Outside, the wind clawed at the shutters, rattling them. The snow pressed hard, thickening, a wall of white against the night. She glanced at him, at the boots that had crossed the stain without hesitation, at the hands that had fixed the latch, the fire. He had become a presence she could count on. Not safe. Not easy. But there. Letters ready, she said. Everything we need. Then we wait, he said. They worked silently after that, setting the papers in neat piles, checking the lantern, stacking wood by the stove. Every movement deliberate. Every shadow cast counted. They didn't speak unless necessary, but the rhythm of the room became shared, a quiet partnership born of necessity, not comfort. You've done this before, he said finally. Enough to know it works, she said. Winter's heavy, he said. Don't let it fool you. I don't, she said. The lantern flame shivered, and she felt its heat against her face, letting it chase the cold from her fingers. The snowstorm outside pressed against the walls, relentless, unyielding. She listened to it, measured it, knew the hours until someone would arrive, until the headlights appeared through the white. They'll come, she said. They do, he said. She moved closer to the table, fingers brushing over the edges of the letters. Then we show them the truth. Not fear, he said. Truth. She nodded, firm. The room felt alive with preparation, with purpose, with the quiet certainty that she would not bend. He stood near the stove, silent, watching the shadows stretch across the walls. She looked at him, for the first time in days without suspicion. He was here. Not asking for thanks. Not asking for anything but to stand. You ready? She asked again. As ready as anyone can be, he said. The wind outside screamed, but inside, the fire roared. The letters waited. The tools waited. And the two of them, silent but resolved, waited together. A faint light appeared first, blurred and distant, then closer. Headlights pressed against the snow outside, bright and accusing. She didn't flinch. She didn't hesitate. She had been ready for this night for years. The sheriff stepped into the house without knocking this time, boots heavy on the floor, coat damp from snow. The lantern light cast his shadow long across the walls, flickering over the stacks of letters and papers the widow had laid out. The man leaned against the wall, arms crossed, pale eyes steady. She stood near the table, hands clenched, chest tight. Evening, the sheriff said, voice smooth, practiced. I hear tell you've got company. Evening, she said, voice flat. We do. You can't hide him, he said. His eyes swept the room, landing on the papers, the stacks of evidence. You think this proves anything? We know, they said again, louder this time. Relief in the words. They had been waiting for someone to say it. Someone to show them they could stand. The widow opened the door wider. Snow swirled at her feet, pressed against the threshold, but she didn't flinch. She let the cold sweep in a little, letting the wind push against the warmth of the house behind her. You've been wronged, she said. You've been lied to. But we stand here. We speak. That's all anyone can do. That's enough. Some of the townsfolk shuffled closer, boots crunching in the snow, hands gripping coats and scarves. Faces lifted, light breaking slowly behind eyes that had been dulled by fear. The man moved among them then, careful, not threatening. He didn't bow, didn't smile, didn't offer forgiveness. He only stood and let them see that someone who had been called wild, dangerous, impossible to control, could remain unbroken. That presence alone shifted something in the crowd. Who are you? A young man asked, voice shaking. I'm not your savior, the man said. I'm just someone standing. Same as you. A few of the women exchanged glances, some of the older men whispered to each other. It was enough to stir hope. Enough to make the town remember what courage felt like, even in winter. The widow moved to the table inside, took the lantern in her hand. Inside, she said. Get warm. Sit. Listen. Learn. They stepped over the threshold slowly, uncertain, awkward, but each one alive and present. Snow clung to coats and hats. Breath hung in the air. Fear still lingered, but hope had arrived quietly, without flourish. The man finally spoke again, quieter this time. I ain't leaving. Not tonight. Not yet. The widow nodded. Good. No one spoke for a long moment, the only sound the crackle of the fire and the soft hiss of snow melting against the door. They had come through the storm. They had heard the truth. And for the first time in years, they weren't running from it. Outside, the wind tried to press in, tried to erase footprints, tried to whisper fear. Inside, fire burned steady. The room was warm. The house was alive. The town, uncertain and trembling, was learning to stand. They would remember this night. Not for the sheriff, not for the fear, not for the cold, but for the courage that stayed, that did not flee. The man moved to the fire, boots near the old dark stain on the floor, pale eyes catching the flicker of light. The widow set the lantern down, shoulders relaxing for the first time. The fire roared, steady, sure. Outside, the storm raged, but inside, something had shifted. They had survived winter. They had survived fear. And together, standing in the glow of firelight, they were alive. Dawn broke pale and fragile over the doorway, snow settling in soft layers on the roof and ground. The widow stood inside, hands wrapped around a tin mug of coffee, steam curling upward and filling the quiet room. The man leaned against the wall, elbows on his knees, watching her without speaking. Neither moved for a long moment, the silence unforced, easy in a way it hadn't been since he arrived. The town had begun to stir. From a distance, voices carried through the cold, footsteps crunching in snow. Someone brought wood, another left baskets of food by the door. No one entered without being called. Respectful, cautious, aware of what had happened. They knew the night had changed something, even if they weren't ready to say it aloud. She tilted her head, eyes meeting his. You staying? She asked. If I'm allowed, he said quietly. You were never the problem, she said. The words landed soft but firm, carrying the weight of all they had endured together. He let the corners of his mouth twitch, almost a smile, then nodded. The fire roared gently, full and steady now, chasing away the last shadows from the room. The lantern swung slightly in the morning breeze, casting dancing light across the walls, over the letters, over the dark boards that remembered. Outside, the townsfolk paused near the edge of the clearing, watching the house, watching her, watching him. No one dared speak. No one needed to. The presence of truth, of someone standing, was enough. She moved to the door, lifting it wide. Snow spilled across the threshold, white and blinding, but she didn't flinch. She looked at the people gathered, the quiet, the hesitant eyes. Come on, she said. If you're hungry, you're welcome. A few stepped forward slowly, hats clutched to their chests, scarves wrapped tight, faces pale from cold and relief both. Others lingered, unsure. But none turned away. The firelight spilled onto the snow, illuminating footprints that would remain, visible proof that the world had shifted just enough. The man stood beside her, hands tucked in his pockets. He didn't speak. His presence alone was enough. He had arrived too wild for the town, too dangerous for their comfort, and yet here he was, quiet and steady. He had given them hope without asking, without saving, without claiming credit. The widow held the door open wider, letting the light and warmth spill out. She didn't need to tell them what to do. They already knew, deep down, that someone had shown the way. That someone had stayed standing when the town had wavered. Coffee, she asked again, softer this time. A few stepped closer, drawn to the warmth, the smell, the quiet courage that filled the room. The man moved toward the fire, letting the heat press against him. His eyes followed her, tracking her movements, reading the calm she had earned, the steadiness she now held. Outside, snow continued to fall, gentle now, no longer a storm but a quiet witness. Wood cracked in the stove, filling the house with the scent of smoke and hope. The town had brought help. They had brought acknowledgement. They had brought the quiet gift of presence. The widow poured coffee into tin mugs, sliding one toward the man. He took it without a word, letting warmth fill his palms. They stood side by side, watching the soft light spill across snow and footprints, across the small collection of people who had dared to arrive. "You're staying," she said finally, more statement than question. "I am," he said. The snow drifted against the doorway, covering edges, but the house remained open. The fire burned steady, full, sure. Footsteps approached, voices whispered, the town began to move again, but this time differently, with acknowledgement, with understanding, with the faint, fragile light of hope. She exhaled slowly, shoulders relaxing for the first time in a long season. The man beside her sipped his coffee, eyes forward, still, present. Outside, the world remained cold, uncertain, but inside, warmth had settled. Winter had not won. Winter had shifted. And for the first time in months, she felt it could be survived, not just endured. She opened the door wider still, letting everyone see, letting everyone in, letting the light pour outward. They stepped over the threshold carefully, reverent, tentative, but alive. They had come through the night. They had seen the truth. And together, with fire and presence and hope, the house, the widow, and the man had survived winter, together. "Don't look at it," she said, voice sharp, brittle. "He's still talking," he said. Her fingers gripped the edge of her coat. She glanced at him, jaw tight. "Talking to who?" "To you," he said. "To the people who listen." She shook her head. He worked with them. With the sheriff. With everyone who mattered. And, he asked. "And it ended like this," she said, gesturing to the ground, to the white dust of snow hiding the black soil beneath. Her throat tightened. Anger, raw and hot, replaced the sorrow she had carried all these years. "And you weren't here. You weren't there to stop it." "I wasn't," he said. "But you lived. You survived." "Survived?" she asked. Her voice trembled. "He's gone, and everything he built is gone too." "You call that surviving?" "You didn't kill him," he said. "You just lived after." She wanted to shout, to punch, to break the stillness around them. Her hands curled into fists at her sides, snow melting against her palms. "Living doesn't make it right," she said. "It makes it possible," he said. The snow fell faster, dusting their shoulders, clinging to the folds of her coat. The wind was sharper here, whispering through the trees, carrying the scent of frost and earth. She crouched near the grave, fingertips brushing the frozen ground. The mark of grief was still there, pressed into her memory, raw and persistent. "You think I can forgive?" she asked. "I don't know," he said. "I know you can stand." Her head dropped, letting the cold sting her cheeks. "I stand, but it doesn't make it easier." "You do what you must," he said. "And the rest comes later." She pressed her palms to the earth, feeling the cold seep into her bones, feeling the weight of loss and silence pressing down. Snowflakes melted on her skin, each one a reminder of time passing, of seasons changing, of the world moving whether she wanted it to or not. "You survived alone," he said. "So you know what that means." "I know what it means to be angry," she said. "To be afraid. To be betrayed. To carry the sound of someone else's death inside me every day. And yet here you are," he said. "Standing." She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the wind whip around her. When she opened them, she saw him watching her with an intensity she hadn't expected. He wasn't cold, exactly, just steady, untouchable in his stillness. She could feel the pressure of his gaze, the quiet insistence that she acknowledge her own strength. "I don't know if I can do it," she said. "You already are," he said. She sank to the ground, knees pressed into the frost, hands clutching at the snow and dirt alike. The storm whispered around them, filling the space between her and the grave with a raw, biting clarity. The man stepped closer but didn't crouch. He stood with his boots pressed against the frost, silent, a solid presence in the cold. "I thought surviving meant moving on," she said. "I thought it meant forgetting." "It doesn't," he said. "Not everything. You remember to survive, and you survive to remember." She let her head fall back, eyes tracking the gray sky. Snowflakes caught in her lashes. The wind carried a faint howl, a warning, a promise, a reminder of the winter yet to come. She felt the pull of grief, the weight of years, the emptiness of the house in town, and she let it sit with her, unshaken. "You did what you had to do," he said softly. "You kept breathing. That's enough for now." She didn't answer. Her fingers traced the frozen edges of the grave, feeling the lines of stone against the earth, against memory. The snow fell heavier, covering the ground in white, erasing what was visible, leaving only what remained in her heart. The man didn't move. He waited. The quiet stretched around them, a boundary, a shield, a reckoning. "I hate it," she said finally, voice low. "I hate the sound of it all." "You hate the truth," he said. "No," she said. "I hate that it didn't stop when it should have. That it never stopped." He nodded once. "You survived it anyway." The snow pressed closer, covering the stones, covering the frost-dusted earth. She sank lower, letting it coat her shoulders, letting the cold reach her bones, letting the grief fill the space between her and the world. The man stood beside her, solid and unmoving. The wind carried a low moan through the trees, a sound that felt like voices of the past reaching forward.